Greetings, dear ones. I'm Kryon of Magnetic Service. It's a real time of repose for so many of you, of thinking. You're posed in a place almost like a statue, being very tired of being a statue. And what I mean by that is that we know what's going through the minds of so many now who are listening. We know where the world is at the moment. This is the 10th of May, 2020. And I give this date for those who will listen to this in the future, not perhaps understanding why the subject is the subject. The world is tired of staying inside. And so there will be a breakout soon, whether it is authorized or not, of those who will come and try to then instill themselves in a life which is back to that which they came from. Perhaps there will be parties that say it's over even when it isn't over, in order to convince themselves that normalcy has returned. That's where you are, and we know this. And the sad part of this, if there is any sad part, is that the ones who should be celebrating with you and pushing this to a fulcrum and getting ready with balloons and all that are continuing to give you fear. They'll do it right to the last moment, and when it's safe, they'll tell you it's not safe, because that's what they do. Dear ones, this has nothing to do with your government. This has everything to do with bad habits of your media. And that's what it is. It's simply habits of marketing. And I want to tell you some more about the things that are going on. Those of you who can see in the cracks and know, even watching the news, will be aware of the game they play with you. And it is a game. And the game is keep you watching at any cost. I'm going to give you a story. Kind of a cute and funny story. Maybe an allegory, maybe a metaphor. Not a parable, just a story. Imagine for a moment, in another time, perhaps another world, that there was a problem with dogs. And they said, this is a problem, you're going to have to tie up your dog. So tie it up now. Don't even let it wander around the house, because the very walking of the dog creates a problem. Tie the dog up so it can't go anywhere. You can feed it, you can pet it, but tie it up. And so all around the world, the dogs are tied up. Carefully, one by one, then thousands, then millions. And the dogs everywhere on the planet are tied firmly, as requested. And then on the news comes a proclamation, an astonishing thing, a special. And they start it by saying, newsflash, newsflash, we don't see any dogs. They're nowhere to be found. We cannot see one in the street. They used to be in the parks. They used to be walking. There are no dogs. And some in some homes go, wait a minute. We figured this out. Wait a minute. You told us to tie up our dogs. That's why there are no dogs. How can you report in such a dramatic fashion that there are no dogs? And you might say, what kind of a parable is this for Kryon to give? Or an allegory, or a metaphor? Well, let me give you something real, something that happened yesterday. There's a news report, dear ones. It's a news report, a flash, a scary number has appeared. Your unemployment rate in this country is higher than the Great Depression. In huge numbers on the screen, over 14% or more. It's the highest it ever was in this nation. Read between the lines. Therefore, you're doomed. And then there's somebody says, wait a minute. Wait a minute. You told us to stay home. That's why nobody's working. You told us to stay home. Now you're giving us a report to frighten us, to scare us that nobody's working? Wait a minute. That's exactly what happened yesterday. It didn't say temporary unemployment, did it? It didn't say employment before recovery, did it? It did not. Therefore, even as you come out of this, they're trying to frighten you. And there is no dark energy here to frighten you. It's simply habit. This is what they do. It's a channel telling you to ignore these things because this is what they do. It's a channel that says things are not always as they seem. Oh, but it's more than that. I will give you something else that's only half being said. You need to hear it. If this were a world war, you would be looking at complete and total destruction of the infrastructure. There would be nothing left. All of the factories would be bombed. There'd be no factories to work at. The infrastructure of the hiring to the factories would also have gone away. All of the things that would be in place to create a product, all those who sell, all those who design, all those who do the marketing and the billboards and all those things, they'd all be gone. The companies would cease to exist. If you had a war, you'd be looking at a world that had died temporarily and the economies were gone completely, and you'd be starting anew. Dear ones, that is the news you're getting, especially in the economy, especially with jobs, especially, as though you'd had a war, as though the factories were gone. The truth is a hybrid of that. They're still there. There are those who are salesmen who are also, it's like you, or perhaps you're one of them in your homes. The products that are needed in this planet, you're in your homes. And when there is a release, that particular engine of the economy will start again, perhaps in a lower way, in order to get up to speed after a surplus has been made by the ones and the products that are still there. But the factories are there. They're not bombed. The infrastructure is still there. It has not died. And yet, the news that you are being given and the projections that you've been giving is as though there had been a war. I want you to think about these things and the logics of these things. The economy will not come bouncing and racing back as though nothing had ever happened. That's not what we're saying. But we're saying it will come back and the jobs are there. And it may come back a little differently. It may come back a little more lean for a while until it then develops into something perhaps it should have been. But it will come back. The factories do not have to be rebuilt. Again, I will say this. There is no economic model for a virus or a pandemic. Don't let them tell you they know what's going to happen. They don't. The great push, the accelerator on all of this is the desire of all of you to go back to what you did. In buildings that have been waiting for you, in places that will welcome you back when the time is correct. All of you want to return and resume. Don't watch the media because they don't care about giving you hope. They just want to sell products. And this, dear ones, is something you would say, well, it shouldn't be in an esoteric channel. It shouldn't be about metaphysical things. I will tell you it's about real life today and fear and anxiety that you do not need to have or participate in. You don't need this now. You need hope, you need truth, and you need to see the way things really truly are. Be some of the ones who say, wait a minute, wait a minute. You told us to tie up the dogs. You can't give us a report that you don't see any dogs in the street anymore. The planet is starting to come out. It's going to burst at the seams of joy. There may even be parties before it's time, simply because people are tired of staying inside, not meeting each other, not having the ability to do as they always have done, to socialize in wonderful places with good food, and to meet each other on the street. Even the countries that do not have some of these privileges want to come out, at least to walk around in the parks and the beaches. And so that is and will be very soon. You stand on the cusp of the beginning of coming back from the reboot, and things will be different than you're told. I'm crying in love with humanity. I'll be back. And so it is.